Morning, everyone. We'll just give it like 1 more minute or so people can join in. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's event, which is Closing the Digital Divide and Finding an Affordable Solution. This event is live on YouTube. Feel free to share the link with others to join. I'm Karishma Siudat, leading the ICT sector at the Israel Trade Mission of South Africa. To speak a little bit more about the Israel Trade Mission South Africa, the Israel Trade Mission South Africa helps assist companies with knowledge, connections, and outreach in the SA and Israel markets. We pre-perform technology scouting researches and facilitate B2B sessions between Israel and SA companies. We participate with national booths and business delegations at trade shows, conferences, and exhibitions. We help accompany and support the individual exporter in the marketing activity abroad. We initiate and apply international trade agreements and maintain existing agreements. We help raising investments and strategic cooperation between Israel and SA companies. Feel free to contact us should you require assistance. We have a special guest today, Unita Clark, the CEO from Digital Council Africa, who will say a few words and then we will kickstart today's event. Unita, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thanks, Karishma, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with everybody today on a topic that is very near my heart, and of course is critically important for the future, the sustainable future of Africa. The Digital Council Africa is an industry association that was founded 11 years ago by companies that had a vested interest at the time, looking just at deploying fiber optic infrastructure. So at the time, that was a very new technology in South Africa. Very few people understood fiber optics. They didn't understand why we needed to deploy it. And of course, everybody is aware that Africa was always touted as the mobile, it's going to be the mobile continent. And we've worked very hard over the last 11 years to raise awareness for the role of fiber in broadband. But of course, as you can tell by our name, we've certainly also changed. We believe that, in order for us to participate in the fourth industrial revolution, we're going to need a myriad of technologies to ultimately connect our people. There is absolutely no one size fits all. It's not going to be mobile or fiber or fixed wireless. We need to come together and we need to find unique solutions depending on where we're at. And of course, I think if the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us anything, it's that, right now, the digital divide will increase unless we put certain effort into narrowing that digital divide. So the first thing, of course, is to recognize that there is a digital divide and that the pandemic has got a very negative effect on that. We saw during the pandemic how easy it was for people with access to technology and access to the internet to continue. Their kids could go to school from home, they could continue to run their businesses. But we also saw simultaneously how people that didn't have access to the internet were left behind. Kids were sitting. In fact, in South Africa alone, during level 5 lockdown, we had 6.5 million children at home with no access to the internet. These numbers are staggering, and it's certainly concerning. So it's a great privilege for me to be here today and to talk to people that's like-minded, people that are saying, hey, we've got a solution and we want to showcase it to the world, and we believe we can make a change in Africa. And with that, I'm going to hand over to you, and I want to wish you a very successful morning, very successful deliberations, and I look forward to listening to each one of you.
Thank you, Unita. So our first speaker, I would like to welcome Packet Light, Nino, the VP Sales, as the first speaker. The topic that she will be discussing, maximize your fiber capacity with easy to deploy WDM solutions. Nino, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you, Karishma, for the introduction. I am Nino, and I want to express my gratitude to Israeli Embassy to South Africa and the Digital Council to Juanita for organizing this event. And I'm personally very honored to participate in this event and share to attendees the technologies and innovations in optical fiber solutions that Packet can bring to South Africa in hopes to improve the infrastructure and connectivity. First of all, everybody can see Juanita, my screen is okay? Everybody can see? All right.
Yes, it's fine.
So as Juanita so very well mentioned and actually underlined that there is still a huge gap to internet access in Africa. According to the data that I have found, 60%, which is basically the majority of Africans, still do not have internet access. Of course, this is not distributed evenly in all countries, but the fact is that there is still a lot to be done in bringing the connectivity to African people. At the same time, the bandwidth requirements are growing consistently and constantly. And again, thank you so much, Juanita, for speaking about this. But we saw so well over the last year during this COVID pandemic that internet access is one of the critical lifelines today for us in our daily lives, whether it's for maintaining business continuity or for regular people to have access to education, to banking, to medicine, to doctors, consultations, and of course to education. And there's still a lot of gaps remain, although there is a lot has been done in Africa in building the infrastructure of optical fiber. And these works are being continued to be done, but there is still gaps that carriers and service providers are facing. And these gaps are covering the access and the last mile. And in here, I hope that our products and solutions can greatly assist in providing the, narrowing the gap. So about Packet Light, the company was established in 2000, and our main focus and specialization is to develop and manufacture state-of-the-art optical WDM systems, which is wavelength-dense multiplexing systems. Whether it's DWDM or CWDM, we are completely OTN standards based and support optical encryption on layer 1. Our solutions are for transmitting data, storage, voice and video protocols transparently without altering or converting them. And mainly our headquarters are, of course, located in Israel. All of the design and manufacturing is done right here in Israel, and we work globally using our channel partners and our service offices. We are actually part of one of the leading telecommunication groups out of Israel, the Rad Data Communications, and we have Rad representatives here in the following sessions. We have been part of the group since really our establishment in 2000. As you can see, there are many, many companies, some of them publicly traded in the group, and we provide exclusively optical and dark fiber solutions within the group. So the products that we design are mainly for building new high capacity optical networks, and as well as building on top of the existing networks, increasing the capacity for already existing third-party networks, whether it's by 100G expansion, 200G, or 400G capacity expansion. And this is very simple for already existing telecom companies to work with us because we are vendor agnostic, because we're standards-based and we comply to all OTN standards. We are able to incorporate and integrate with any of the already existing third-party DWDM vendors, which makes expansion for existing companies very easy, cost-effective, and quick. We integrate with centralized management. We also offer centralized management to our partners and to our customers, and of course support a secured encrypted transport of information over fiber. Now, how can we offer, what are the differentiators that we offer to you as opposed to other similar vendors. And I would say, first of all, it's our size and compact approach. Since our beginning, our product vision was to provide carrier class features in a compact 1U form factor. Why? For simplicity, for saving space, for saving electricity, and so on and so forth, for creating customer premise equipment, but not compromising on the features and the capabilities that tier 1 carriers required for the use by dark fiber providers, for use by tier 1, tier 2 carriers, service providers, and even large enterprises such as data centers and so forth. Together with the compact size, our vision and our belief is that to provide simple configuration, setup, and easy maintenance and monitoring for the technical teams of our customers. Again, connected to our compact size, everything becomes very cost effective. All of a sudden, you don't have to pay much for the space or for cooling or for redundancy and so forth. Overall, we believe that our solutions are fit in remote areas, in hard to reach areas because of our compact size. Today, we support up to 400G transport capacity per wavelength. And this, of course, can be divided and multiplexed in lower rate services. So just a quick illustration, what I'm talking about when I mention about the size. So on the left-hand side, you will see a chassis-based approach. These are more legacy systems even that are still a lot out in the field, which require from day one quite an investment in cooling, in power, and in space, as opposed to our approach, where the same type of capacity and service transport capability we can achieve in 2U, in some cases even in 1U, while providing an effective growth path and pay-as-you-grow architecture. As the requirements grow and the bandwidth capacity is needed, the service providers can just add another 1U unit and another 1U unit without reaching any technical limitations. And this kind of approach has proven quite effective, and we see a lot of the vendors also coming out with a compact size equipment. The slide is a very nice illustration of what is the capabilities in our 1U solutions. So here we can see how to build an agile DWDM, CWDM network and transmitting a very different mix of services without converging or converting, completely transparently. And the service types range from low rates, such as gigabit Ethernet and even fast Ethernet, to all the way up to 400G Ethernet. Today, we're still facing with lower rate services and service requirements in Africa and South Africa, 1G and many legacy equipment. That backbone is based on 10G equipment, on 10G capacity. We support this, and we can help telecom companies, dark fiber providers expand and extend their networks with these services. So to summarize our technology highlights, really we support no matter if it's long distance or metro networks, we support all service types, all protocols, starting from 1G Ethernet to 400G, starting from 4G fiber channel to 32G fiber channel. This is very important for data centers and connectivity and redundancy and security of data center transmission, while integrating and providing complete network management, centralized management systems in order to integrate with, either integrate into already existing systems or provide new systems. We also are one of the few companies who support transmission of native video protocols without altering and degrading the quality. and we provide layer 1 encryption. We'll talk about this a little bit more as well, but security is very important. Security not only in securing the data and encrypting the data, but also avoiding fiber tapping or stealing of data in field, which happens in everywhere actually. Also, we provide fiber monitoring tools that enable service providers and dark fiber providers to know at any given moment what's happening on the fiber and to maintain business continuity and service uptime. Now, because of the limitation of time, I can talk about our technology much more, but I want to go to our case study, which I have chosen for discussion this morning. And I chose to talk about alien wavelengths, which is basically an expansion of an existing network. So what I mean is, in many cases, carriers in South Africa, in many countries, already have DWDM networks, whether it's legacy networks of 10G or even lower rates. And let's face it, they have a need to upgrade, to expand their capacity, but they can't really, it's not makes business sense to throw out their existing equipment. So in this case, we are able to ride on top of the infrastructure that's already been implemented, as long as the infrastructure is OTU4 or OTU2 standard. So as long as it meets standards that are put in place by optical community, and we can provide the expansion. And in this case, provide the expansion, and as you can see, the transport of the same variety of mix of services as I mentioned before, whether it's gigabit Ethernet and fast gigabit Ethernet, or STM services, or video or fiber channel. So how does this look? In this case, actually, it doesn't matter whether it's a metro network or a long distance network. Here is an illustration of an 800-kilometer network, point to point, with already existing chassis-based legacy network of, let's say this can be a 10G network. What we achieve is by taking already one channel or one wavelength of an existing infrastructure, we are able to expand the capacity of the entire backbone by additional 200G in this particular case, by just adding 1 units at each of the ends of the line. This 200G capacity, of course, can be used to split into many different services of 10G and 8G fiber channel, and et cetera, et cetera. So we actually have many cases working with telecom companies and service providers and dark fiber providers in these scenarios. This is a case, a real case in Ecuador, actually. Why I chose Ecuador, because they had a 10G network, which is a third-party network, and they were experiencing a lot of bottlenecks, and they pretty much had exhausted their backbone. And I believe this could be case in many of the, in some of the service providers and carriers, even in South Africa. But they didn't want to throw out their existing equipment. So this is when we were able to do exactly what I just described. We used the freed up channels from their existing backbone network and expanded the entire national network to 100G capacity. Because of our ease of maintenance and installation, their existing team of the carrier was able to support, implement support, and continues to maintain the network. We also help them integrate into their central management system, where they have one view of their entire network, old and new. With this slide, I want to go a little bit into technical. I believe I have a few more minutes, so I will be finishing soon. But a little bit more technical about how our products look and what they represent. So the top where it says PL2000M is one of our 200G muxponders, which gives a 200G capacity but then it can be separated into different service types, whether it's 40 gigabit Ethernet, 100 gigabit Ethernet, 10G Ethernet, or Fiber Channel, or STM, and so forth. Upgrade and service maintenance service turn on is by plugging optical modules without any complicated licenses or approvals. It's just as easy and simple as that. All of our 1U units always come with redundant power supplies, whether AC and DC, to ensure the uptime and operability at all times, and with a fiber, a fan unit tray, which supports multiple fans for cooling already low power consumption unit. So in one unit, there is a lot that can be achieved with embedded MUX, TMUX, and optical components. For lower rates, such as gigabit Ethernet and fast Ethernet, STM4, etc., we have another muxponder, which is PL2000. It's a 1020G muxponder. So in this particular scenario, in 200G capacity, we can have many different, of course, Ethernet solutions, and as well as 40G and 100G mix of services. This is pretty much all I had today, and I will be very happy to discuss further. I believe that when we're talking about optical solutions and applications, every case is different, and we're glad to work with the customers and our partners on case-by-case basis to build the exact technical solution that fits their exact needs. So please feel free to approach to us. Karishma, I'm available on LinkedIn, and Karishma could share also my contact information after our presentations.
Thank you so much. Can you stop sharing?
Yes, absolutely. 1 second.
I just want to see if there's any questions for you. So there's no questions for you. Guys, you can put in your questions through to any of our speakers while they're speaking or even after they speak, and then they would be happy to answer your questions. So our second speaker for today, we'll move on to our second speaker since there's no Q&A. So our second speaker for today is David from Actilus. So David,
Hi.
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. And I'd like to thank you and also Juanita for giving Actilus the opportunity to discuss our solutions. Actilus is a company that's been around for about 20 years. And what we're going to discuss today is fiber enabled networks and how to provide
David, sorry, your line is really bad here.
Make it affordable. Okay.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Let me just turn off my video.
Yeah, maybe that's better.
Okay. Sorry.
It's still a bit blur.
Yeah.
The internet net it's really bad, David.
Can you hear me now?
Can't really. Yeah, I can hear you, but it's like really blur and it's not too clear. Hey.
Okay. It's working okay. Yeah. If you can't hear me, then maybe go to Brad and I'll try and see what I can do about things. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's still not very clear. Okay, you can try again. Maybe it will work.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
maybe.
I'll try again.
Okay,
Hopefully,
David, maybe I should go to Daniel.
hopefully you'll be able to.
David, let me get Daniel to do his presentation and then we'll come back to you. So you can just sort your network out. Is that okay? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Oops.
Okay, so Daniel, I hope you don't mind presenting because
no, not a
yeah.
problem.
So you can go ahead and present. So our next speaker is Rad. So we have Daniel, head of product line management, and he will present fiber solutions for service providers.
So first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Juanita and Karishma, for this opportunity to present RAD networking solutions as part of this panel. First of all, I would like to introduce a bit RAD, talk about who's RAD and how long we are active. This is a very important year for us. It's our 40th anniversary. We are already 40 years in the market of telecom. We are sister companies of Packetlight, as was mentioned yesterday, part of a bigger RAD group, which has around 1.5 billion sales in common. We've been selling a telecom solution, access solution for the last 40 years. And if we look at what is our offering, we can say today that we have several segments to which we are selling. We have the EAD business for service providers. There we offer services which are business services going directly by the service providers and also wholesale services. We are very active in the area of UCP, PCP virtualization-based solutions and next generation router. This is part of our offering today. It was mentioned earlier that fiber is a very important ingredient in creating communication and connecting everyone, but mobile is absolutely one of the leading technologies. 5G is being discussed and starting to be deployed. So mobile XOL is definitely a very important market for us, and we've been active in the mobile backhaul area for many years. For the service provider and as the wholesale service. And in the recent years, we're becoming more and more active also in the industrial IoT backhaul, targeting mainly critical infrastructure, but not only solutions. And in the use cases and the products I will mention today, we will focus mainly on the EAD and the industrial IoT, and we will see what offering and what benefits RAD can bring to South Africa and to our customers in general. Okay, so in the carrier Ethernet, the EAD market, as you can see, RAD is very, very active. I can say clearly that we are part of the top 3 vendors in the world offering solutions in this area. As Ron mentioned earlier, the demand for bandwidth is growing all the time, and the 1 gig that was very, very popular is gradually becoming low rate or low bandwidth, and we see the 10 gig becomes the new 1 gig. And of course, the 100 gig is gaining more and more momentum. RAD can offer a solution starting, as I said, from the 1 gig, going up to the 100 gig. We are coming out this year also with a new product for the mobile backhaul and fronthaul. Our business 100 gig platform is already available, and I will explain later on what are the benefits and capabilities of this platform. Another offering that RAD has, which is coming very soon, and I think this is important not only for connectivity of businesses, but also to provide the service provider a way to expand their offering also to outdoor installation without special cabinets, is our outdoor units. For example, in a safe city or smart city projects where you need connectivity of cameras over fiber, this is one of our offering. And also for mobile backhaul, when you need to connect outdoor EADs or devices that will do the backhaul, we'll be able to provide a full outdoor solution. In addition to the products themselves that are the ETX product line, we have complementary solution for performance monitoring and smart SFPs that can connect to legacy infrastructure and further expand the capabilities of our EADs. And of course, we have a unified management system called RADView, which orchestrates and manages all the RAD equipment that I will present in this slide and in the following slides. As I said, there is a growing demand for bandwidth to connect over fiber. If a few years ago 1 gig was sufficient, we see today that 10 gig is gaining more and more momentum. And we see already a very large demand for 100 gig platforms that are able to connect different rates of traffic. For example, aggregating 1 gig and 10 gig customers. For example, if you have an aggregation point where you want to take 10 gig coming from residential buildings or offices and so on to better utilize the fiber. Of course, this can also connect to DWDM, CWDM to better utilize the fiber. Multi-tenancy, very high buildings that you want to provide with a higher bandwidth capacity. Later in the future, after the 10 gig, we see also requirements for 25 gig. So our platform is able to support all the rates from 1 gig, 10 gig, and 25 gigs. And of course, connectivity of data center. We see more and more demands for higher bandwidth between data centers of customers, not only the cloud. And with the platform that we have on the 100 gig, we are actually addressing all these requirements and provide the customers a relative easy migration from their 1 gig to their 10 gig and the 100 gig, because they all have the same look and feel and they can utilize the same management system. So we provide the full portfolio of Ethernet access over fiber. Another unique point that we have in RAD is actually ability to provide MEF services over LTE. As one mentioned earlier, I think by Juanita, not all sites can have fiber from day one. This takes time and a lot of investments. And if a service provider wants to deploy the Ethernet services to remote customers or to location where the fiber doesn't reach the customer, RAD can offer a solution which is based on our product ETX203AX. This device incorporates inside it an LTE modem with the high bandwidth that can provide an interim solution to deploy layer 2 MEF-based services between the remote branch and the enterprise headquarters or to the service provider network. Later on, once the fiber gets to this location, he can use the same LTE link for backup, for out-of-band management in case there is a fiber cut and the service provider needs to access the device, in case he needs to do some load sharing and pass part of the services over fiber and part of them over LTE. So all in all, this device provides a very attractive and interesting way for a service provider to start deploy their services. Once they have the fiber, migrate to fiber and provide the LTE for additional use cases. Let's move to the automation and IoT. This is another line that RAD is being very active. In this area, we have actually two product lines. One is called the PowerFlow. This is a product line of layer 2 switches with different PON cards, starting for very small units that can do conversion and injection of PoE to 1 gig products with different capacity of ports, either SFP or copper, including PoE, which can be PoE++. And of course, we have 10 gig products that can build very large rings, aggregating multiple remote sites, and some of them are able to provide PoE in high power for multiple ports. This is one product line. The second product line is our Sakflow product line that actually provides the industrial IoT layer 2, layer 3 capabilities. Again, providing connectivity over multiple types of interfaces. It can be fiber using standard SFPs. It can be over copper, of course. We have different pluggables like GPON or VDSL that can connect and provide the copper or fiber connectivity. We have our AirMax, which is a radio solution I will present later on. So it provides all the functionality that you might need in a remote side, which works in a ruggedized environment with high temperature, rugged, let's say extreme temperatures and environmental conditions. And of course, we have a complementary device which aggregates all the VPNs that are established between the remote sites to secure and authenticate the traffic between the remote site and central site. Again, the RAD view, our management system, is orchestrating and managing all these products. I would like to discuss with you several use cases. One of them is what we call smart city or safe estates communication. And here we actually can offer the Sakflow or the PowerFlow or both as a bundle to expand the amount of ports and the PoE capabilities. Together with our partners, we are offering cabinets that can aggregate, for example, CCTVs, PTZ cameras, communication junction boards, information boards, emergency alarms and indication, all of this to provide a full safe city solution or safe estate, monitoring and controlling various functions that you have on the pole, including voice. We can offer our AirMax, which is powered by our PowerFlow and our Sakflow. They can both power our radio solution to provide wireless connectivity over private radio. And of course, the Sakflow is able to work with LTE in case you want it as a backup or you want it as a primary link. So all in all, we can provide a very comprehensive solution in terms of connectivity. Another unique point that we have with the Sakflow is actually connectivity in LoRa with LoRaWAN. This is a very popular low power radio technology, providing solution for multiple sensors. It can be smart irrigation, agriculture, gas and oil, power utilities, you name it, smart parking, multiple applications that can be addressed and backhauled over this technology. Our Sakflow device is able to provide connectivity of LoRa to the remote sensor and of course securely backhaul them to a central site for analysis and monitoring. In addition to all the functionalities I mentioned earlier before, this provides a very integrated solution, which is very cost effective to those who want to deploy smart city or safe city projects, including the ability to control and monitor additional functions. These are just part of the services I just mentioned, for example, CCTV, Wi-Fi access points that can be powered either by the PowerFlow or the Sakflow, streetlight control, meter aggregation for different applications like water and irrigation and so on. So overall, we can provide a very, very comprehensive solution that aggregates multiple services into very small footprint of products. This is an example of a project that we did for smart safe city in North America, in the US. Here we are utilizing our PowerFlow inside the cabinet provided by our partners. The backhaul technology used here is the AirMax. This is our private radio solution that we can offer. Embedded inside the cabinet, we are backhauling the cameras over the radio, as you can see. Our offering includes extension of remote sites using either point-to-point radios or point-to-multipoint radio into a central solution that aggregates all the video and all the information and is presented in the control center. Another use case, and this is from Israel, if we get a speed ticket driving too fast, it's because of us, because of RAD. We've been working with the Israeli police on a project to connect all their speed camera and backhaul them over LTE. Here you can see our Sakflow inside the cabinet. The Sakflows are connected to the cameras which are on the poles. We have also ability to connect dry contacts. If someone is tampering with this enclosure, we are able to send traps and information to the center unit, notifying them that someone opened the cabinet. And everything is done in over LTE. We have different mechanism to back up the traffic, either with a dual LTE modem or by switching SIM cards and move to another cellular operator. Everything can be done in a secure way, opening IPsec tunnels or secure tunnels between the remote sites and the center. So all this sensitive information, if it's sensitive, can be authenticated and validated, and of course, in case it's needed, it can be encrypted. So this is another use case which can be relevant. We are active, as I said, not only in the service providers domain, but also in the critical infrastructure. Here is an example for SCADA backhauling for power utilities. We have a customer in Europe. It's a big power utility that wanted to have a fully redundant solution to backhaul his RTUs. He's been using our Sakflows with VRRP. This is a redundancy mechanism between the two routers, running here over fiber to its own private network, and terminating the services in RAD security gateway, providing the connectivity to the SCADA servers. In case there is a failure, he wants to add LTE connectivity by adding additional device that will do the backhauling over LTE end-to-end. And this is another use case that you can utilize our Sakflows, our power flows, over fiber or any other technology to gain secure communication with all the functionality that is needed for this critical operation. That's more or less what I had to present. So if you have any questions, you are more than welcome. Of course, our sales rep, Tzachi, and our partners can help you and assist you with the right products and offering for your applications.
Thank you, Daniel. So we did have a question, but I saw Saki answered that question. So let me just see if David. Hi, David.
Yeah, hopefully I've solved my...
Okay, we can hear you much better now. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay,
yeah.
That just...
You can go ahead and present.
Yeah, that just... okay, let's do this. Okay, so this just shows what I was going to talk about. So Actelis is basically involved in hybrid systems. And, you know, as everyone's been saying until now, there are billions of devices now being connected up to the internet, whether it be smart switches or smart homes or cameras, sensors, railways, campuses, homes, and they all require now high-speed connectivity. And as we've seen just before, a great example of my home network, working from home is very challenging. And as you've mentioned, that not everyone has connectivity from home or the bandwidth that they need in order to work efficiently from home, and that's adding additional strain on the network and requirements for network providers. Even in Europe and America, fiber does not reach the majority of subscribers of buildings. And in Africa, it's I think the numbers are even lower. So therefore, we need to provide a solution whereby we can upgrade it and provide the needed bandwidth and connectivity as soon as possible. And this is basically where Actelis is involved. So you have an issue. On the one hand, you have fiber optics, which were designed to provide high-speed connectivity. However, in the last mile, it's less prevalent. There's much less fiber in the last mile, and it's much more difficult to trench fiber when you're talking about residential areas. And it's a huge economical challenge. It's costly, and it takes a lot of time. On the other hand, copper wasn't designed for telephony. It wasn't designed for broadband. It was designed for telephony, and therefore, historically, you haven't been able to get the bandwidth available for that customers require. So if we look at fiber can provide high-speed connectivity. However, it is expensive to deploy. If we're talking about trenching fiber, again, maybe the numbers are slightly lower in Africa, but you're talking about $3,000 per customer to provide a fiber connectivity to a customer. And if you're talking about rural, the expenses go up exponentially. The ROI for fiber is typically more than 9 years, and it requires a very high upfront CapEx investment, which means that the revenue is that you can get from services is delayed by months or even years. On the other hand, copper is available with low cost and immediate, virtual immediate return on investment. However, as we said, it's traditionally been low speed and low quality. However, in the recent years with VDSL 35B and GFast and G.hn, we've managed over copper to cross the gigabit bandwidth per line. So you can provide gigabit services over copper. But the question is, again, how do you merge these or utilize both of these technologies to be most effective? So Actelis provides what we call fiber-enabled products, or according to the broadband forum, they call it fiber to the extension point, which allows you to expand the fiber network nearer to the customers and to use copper as on the last mile. And this can be used for a various number of applications, whether it be campuses, schools, to provide connectivity for education, cell connectivity for utilities, etc., smart cities. So utilizing the existing infrastructure is something that can be done. But again, the question is how you merge those two technologies. So Actelis over the years has had deployments using hybrid solutions and fiber extension products to provide connectivity for both for residential services, for business services, for utilities. But what I want to focus today is on the residential and the business connectivity. I mean, we do have examples of other, for instance, in the traffic market, we've just deployed a huge deployment in Europe, both based on fiber and wherever fiber wasn't available using copper. But again, as I said, I'd like to focus on business and residential. So if we look at today's typical ADSL, VDSL solution, if we looked at it a number of years ago, typically the connection was a long distance connection from the CEO office, from the CO office to residential areas, providing maybe up to 10 megabit per second, but typically lower. As we advance with technology, so VDSL became available, providing either providing VDSL from the cabinet or from the CO, and providing higher speeds, typically 50 megabit per second, but theoretically up to 100 megabit per second. The question is how to provide higher bandwidth today. So if fiber is available and can be deployed today, there's no reason not to use fiber. Fiber is the ideal infrastructure in which to provide connectivity, and you can provide, for instance, in the basement or at a street cabinet very close to residents. You can provide a DPU or a DSLAM supporting 35B or GFast, G.hn. These are the types of products that today can provide much higher bandwidths. However, until fiber becomes available, the question is what can you do? So instead of moving a cabinet or deploying it, you can use bonded copper to provide connectivity and therefore provide a much higher bandwidth of gigabit per second, fiber speed, fiber reliability until fiber becomes available, which can take, as I said, a number of years. If I look at example in India, where they deployed a fiber network, it took them 7 years to deploy the network nationwide. So using our GL800 product and comparing it with direct connectivity, if I look at different distances, and as I mentioned, the distances today between the fiber infrastructure and the end user are becoming shorter. So even if I look at a long distance of 1 kilometer, if you provide connectivity today using VDSL to a customer, you'd get about 60 megabit per second, which is still relatively good speed. But using bonded copper over 16 pairs and providing that as a trunk to customers or to a building or to a residential area, you can provide 1 gigabit of service. And since not all the customers are going to be using the internet at the same time, theoretically, every customer can receive 1 gigabit of service. And as the distances grow shorter, so the bandwidth increases, and you can see that the differences become exponentially higher. So the GL800 is a very compact unit. It's one U high, half of a 19-inch rack. It uses ultra-fast copper technology using GFast and VDSL technologies, which can reach gigabit speeds. And it can bond up to 8 or 16 copper pairs, but it also has 10 Ethernet ports, including SFP ports, which means that you can provide copper technology today, copper connection today, and when fiber becomes available, connect up fiber without replacing any equipment. It can be used, so you can have today a 5 gig uplink, and in next year we're coming up with a 10 gigabit product, a similar product. It can be used in point-to-point or point-to-multipoint topologies, which means that you can connect up multiple devices or multiple, let's say, regions. If you have a residential area, you can split the copper pairs and connect up to individual houses or buildings. We have CO or remote terminal units, but they can also be used with standard third-party vendors, DSLAMs. The products are hardened, so they can be put in a street cabinet which doesn't have air conditioning. And we also have the option to add on high security encryption, 256-bit encryption, and also synchronization for base stations. So just to summarize, trenching fiber to every location is it's expensive and it's not immediate. It takes time, and typically you do have copper pairs between the CO or the street cabinet and residential or business buildings. And using this to provide an immediate solution can provide the service providers with the option to provide immediate solutions for customers. And when fiber becomes available, you can just seamlessly upgrade without replacing any equipment. So basically you can get immediate revenue and with a low initial CapEx investment. Okay, so that's all I have today. So thank you. I did see that quite a few questions.
Thank you, David. So it's not basically a question. So everyone in South Africa, the attendees, they say the only one problem with deploying copper technologies in South Africa is cable theft. And someone else also wrote, in South Africa, copper is stolen all the time and cannot be replaced by copper. So do you want to say anything about it, or should we go to panel discussion and then?
No, I can relate to that. So the question is, how I know that there is an issue of in South Africa of copper being stolen. And the question is, what do you do to provide a solution today? So you can either wait for fiber to become available, which can take years, or you can provide a solution today. And you don't need to swap, as I mentioned, those units can be connected up to either copper or to fiber, which means that you can provide connectivity today. In the worst case, if copper is stolen, you don't lose anything because the products are there and can be connected up with fiber connectivity. So the same products you don't have to swap the products out. But it does provide the option to provide immediate connectivity as an immediate solution, as a revenue building solution.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let's move to panel discussion. Okay, so I think the entire panel can open their videos and unmute themselves, because it's open for everyone to answer, and whatever input you have, you can give in. So the first panel discussion question I would like to put forward is, what is it that governments can do to help narrow the digital divide?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can say, I know that if I look at different countries, in America, for instance, a number of years ago, there was a rural development project whereby companies that invested in broadband technologies were given either tax breaks or subsidized subsidies in order to develop and to provide rural broadband initiatives. And that was over whatever infrastructure they provided. So at the time it was copper or fiber or wireless. The government, I think, need to be involved in pushing and giving tax breaks or other advantages to companies who are interested in providing those types of solutions.
Okay, thank you, David.
Maybe I can add something to this. If you look at the deployment of power utilities, railways in the countries, you see that they have a very large deployment, or they are present all over. And most of these companies, they have their own fiber network that they are using for today. We see a growing trend in the world for such utilities to become a U-telco, which the government is encouraging. They are opening up their fiber network to provide services as like any other service provider. And this can really help or accelerate the process of deploying internet services to rural areas where the power utilities, for example, they have the power poles getting very close to the customer. So this is something I think that the government should encourage to speed up the deployment and connectivity of these rural areas.
Thank you, Daniel. Nino, you want to add anything?
Yes, actually, what I would think is another initiative is probably simply to simplify the processes and approval processes for those private companies who want to come and develop the infrastructure. To lay fiber is quite a big investment. So, of course, both what Daniel said and David, incentives and tax incentives are great, but also simple processes and quick achievement of approvals will probably speed up. I know that sometimes it may take a year or years in some cases to get approvals to lay fiber and to extend existing fiber trenches, and of course then to hire the teams and so forth. So I do hear from our partners and customers in Africa and in South Africa that this is definitely one of the obstacles as well.
It's true. It does take time. If we move on to our next question, what is the role of security in the data transmission over fiber?
Well, I'd like to take initiative on this question. Actually, fiber is being regarded as one of the more secure transmission methods, but actually, if it's not protected correctly, it's not. It's enough to bend fiber just a little bit and enough for just 1% of light traveling through fiber to escape, and it will carry 100% of the information being transmitted on that fiber. So there are several things that we do as a company, and of course, several things that should be done. First is to have initiatives of fiber tapping. So we, for example, have a specific encryption software, security software that's embedded in our units, which detect possible fiber tapping and provide alarm to fiber owners or fiber renters, whoever is responsible for service maintenance, that something may be happening and where and at what location. That's on the physical level. On the data level, the data should be encrypted, and that guarantees that even if the fiber is tapped and the data compromised, then the data cannot be deciphered. So that's a huge step, and that's one of the developments years ago of layer 1 encryption solutions, something that allows The topest encryption, AES-256 encryption of the data according to the leading standards of FIPS 140 and common criteria and so forth, security encryption standards in Europe and in North America that allow the secure transmission. Now, there are security and, of course, encryption measurements and applications and software on all levels, layer 2, layer 3, on MACsec layer, IPsec layer. But it is proven that encrypting data transmission on layer 1, on the fiber optic layer, it's the least intrusive to the data. There is close to zero data loss, close to zero bandwidth loss, and so forth. And third point to be considered in security is, of course, access and management platforms, right? So we talked about physical security, data security, and user authentication, and so forth. And here also we have implemented in our solutions, in our products, such security measurements that really protect the organization, whether it's carrier or government organization or data centers, from unauthorized access to the equipment and to the network, down to this level.
Okay, thank you, Nino. Anyone wants to add anything else?
I would like to add a bit on RAD solutions. As Nino said, indeed, the encryption in layer 1 is very efficient, but and from time to time we are cooperating together with the Packet Light. It's our system company in projects to assure the encryption of the lines. From our experience in the world of the critical infrastructure, one of the most important things, even more important in some cases than the encryption itself, is the authentication of the end user or the equipment which is connected. And this is done many times using the MACsec or the IPsec that we have embedded in our products.
Right,
this is
correct.
an additional layer of security on top of the encryption. Access control to the network, this is something critical, either by standards like 802.1x and so on. This is something that we support as well. So overall, once a service provider or someone who builds his own network, he would like to protect it to prevent man-in-the-middle attack. And all that was mentioned before, and the additional things that I mentioned, I think that will provide the full coverage and security to the user's network.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, and I agree with what Daniel said, and I think that MACsec, for instance, 256-bit encryption is something that has become required, especially for utilities in the EU. There's been the European Union have come out with a recommendation to have, because of cyber ransomware and various other issues, which costs billions of dollars every year, that products should be encrypted, and Actelis products support encryption as well, MACsec encryption. One other, if we're talking about, that's for fiber, also for the copper, the fact that you're using multiple copper pairs and bonding them together, so the data is actually split between the copper pairs, which makes it much more difficult to actually steal or have access to the data, because you have to know exactly the algorithm of how the data is split between the individual copper pairs.
Okay, thank you, David. The next discussion we can have is, how do you see a role of smaller ISP in the development of fiber connectivity?
Mm-hmm. I can start answering this question, actually.
Okay.
ISPs, meaning internet service providers, at the smaller size, they're not tier 1 carriers, I think are crucial for actually increasing the and closing that gap that I was talking about between the existing backbone networks and those areas where there's still a big decline in access to internet. Because their main goal is to really reach those customers that are out there available, and they're more agile, they're more dynamic. But that kind of ties back into Karishma's first question of what governments can do, and exactly where the difficulties and challenges lay is more the governments can assist and simplify processes for smaller ISPs. I believe that the digital gap will be closing more and more in South Africa and all of Africa. In addition to ISPs, I would also like to mention data centers. I personally see this tendency in all of the regions in Europe, as well as Asia, where data centers are becoming more and more service providers, you know. Up till today, data center was mainly just leasing space and power capacity in terms of electricity, but today more and more they're actually turning into cloud service providers and even native video streaming providers and so forth. So really, again, governments have a big incentive to incentivize these types of companies, smaller ISPs and data centers, and those are the ones who really, I believe, will expand the backbones of existing carriers and take it into inner areas of South Africa and other African countries.
Thank you, Nino. So we're just running on time, so I just want to make sure we get all our discussions out there. Sure. So I think we should just move on to the next one. So the next one is due to COVID-19 and the increase in demand of internet infrastructure, what would be the most cost-effective, affordable, and high connectivity infrastructure that should be deployed in South Africa?
Maybe I can answer, from our perspective. Of course, fiber is the preferred technology in terms of reliability and bandwidth. Yes. On the other hand, if you want, for example, in the COVID situation, you want to deploy and to provide services to remote customers that fiber doesn't reach, you have to turn to other technologies, private radio, for example, or LTE, with the emerging of 5G in the future. These should be considered, and to see how you combine the technologies and provide the best solution which integrates all of the worlds. We cannot rely only on one technology, as Juanita said in the beginning of this session. There should be a mixture of technologies that can complement, back up each other to provide better coverage of the end users.
Okay, thank you. David, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so, oops, my video stopped, but I agree with Daniel, and I think also, even though copper is a hard sell in South Africa, I think that in certain situations, copper can be used, and especially if it's there, and just until fiber becomes available.
Okay, thank you. So our last topic for discussion is, what are the main trends you see in the global market that are also relevant to South Africa?
So, from my point of view, we're seeing that fiber is becoming deployed nearer to the customers. I mean, the ideal is fiber to the home. But in effect, most of the European and North American and also Asian countries that we work with, we're seeing the move to deploy fiber closer to the home and using higher speed technologies of usually VDSL 35B, but also in some countries also GFast or G.hn to provide the last few hundred meters connectivity to whether it be businesses or residential customers. And I think that is something that is happening worldwide, that you want to get higher bandwidth but on the other hand, fiber to every single home is just cost prohibitive, and it's not happening. So there is some sort of hybrid solutions, but with the copper slowly being replaced by fiber.
Okay, thank you, David. Is there anything else, you guys? I think we're up for time. It's already 11:15. I just want to thank the panel, UNITA, and the attendees for attending this event. The Israel Trade Mission really appreciate this. All the companies who have scheduled a B2B meeting with the panel, I will contact you and make introductions to the panel and the companies. Have a blessed day, guys. Thank you, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.